YouTubers, welcome to another episode of Small Engines Questions and Answers for Friday, April 22nd, 2011. So hopefully everybody had a good week. We've had quite a bit of bad weather here in the last week. We've had a bit of hail and snow, and it's been raining a lot and it's cold. And I've even got the stove lit here because it's so cold. And as you can see here, the weather's pretty miserable. It's white, it's wet, and it's damp and cold. Last year at this time we were in shorts and t-shirts. Quite a difference this year. Before I get started today, I just want to remind everybody that when you email me with questions, like if you email me about a lawnmower, be specific about the engine that's on your lawnmower. So if you have a Tecumseh motor, just tell me you have a lawnmower with a Tecumseh motor. Also, if you know the size of your engine, send that information along with what you've already done to your engine, and it's a lot easier for me to try to help you to diagnose that. Unfortunately, it's a bit hard for me to diagnose everything without physically seeing it. So the more information you send me, the better it is. The first question I have today is a YouTuber emailed me saying that his chainsaw will only work with the choke on. As soon as he opens the choke or turns it off, the chainsaw dies. What's causing this problem is that your chainsaw is starving for fuel. So when you put the choke on, it sends a bit more fuel to the engine. That's why it's able to keep going. And when you turn the choke off, it dies because there's not enough fuel going to the engine. Now what usually causes that is that your carburetor is either dirty or the carb kit needs to be replaced. So if you had a saw like this, you would remove the carburetor, clean it, and at the same time replace the carb kit. There are just diaphragms in there, and there's also a needle that will come in the kit as well. You would also want to check the fuel line and filter inside the fuel tank. Grab a hook like this, go inside, retrieve the fuel line and the filter, and check it to make sure that it's good. The fuel line's rubbery like this, as you can see, and all squeezed in and soft. Then the fuel line would have to be replaced in this saw here as well. And while you're at it, you may as well put a new filter. And obviously you want to make sure that you've got good fresh fuel inside your fuel tank. So a simple thing to remember is if your chainsaw only runs with a choke on, or if you spray quick start in the carburetor, that's because it's got a fuel problem. So then you would examine all the parts that I just previously showed you on that little Stihl chainsaw to make sure that everything's good. Now another question I just received from a YouTuber in regards to chainsaws again is, can I use the old oil from my lawnmower and my car engine for bar oil in my chainsaw? Well, you can use old motor oil as bar oil in your chainsaw, but at your own risk. Like I said, at your own risk, because you never know if there's a dirt particle in the old oil that could clog up your pump, especially if you've got a sensitive oil pump on a brand new chainsaw. You're actually taking a chance. But for myself, I use old motor oil in these old chainsaws here, like old home lights. I would use old motor oil in an old chainsaw like this, probably a Poulan like that, the green Poulans over here as well. But I won't use old motor oil in my Husqvarna 45 chainsaw here. Also, if I had any new Stihl or Husqvarna chainsaw, I would not use old motor oil. I have used old motor oil for many years in chainsaws. I never had a problem, but I would prefer not to use the old motor oil in a brand new chainsaw. Now, if you really want to use your old motor oil, you could always run it through a strainer or a paint filter to remove any dirt particles that are left over in the engine oil. Now after doing this, you should be safe to use it in your chainsaw. Like I said, you would be doing this at your own risk because you cannot fully guarantee that that old oil is not going to damage any parts in your chainsaw. It may be economical if you don't get a problem, but if you do get a problem, you're going to find that you did not save any money at all. So these are just suggestions. Do what you want to do with your chainsaw, but that's what I do with my own equipment. Now my last question today, again about chainsaws, a YouTuber's wondering, why does this chainsaw chain want to keep moving when the chainsaw's idling? He says the only way to stop the chain is by applying the chain brake on. Well, I've got a Husqvarna 45 chainsaw here, and I'm going to show you what could be causing that problem. First of all, you'd want to check the basic things. You'd want to make sure that your idle screw is not turned in too far, because what that screw is for is to set how fast you want your chainsaw to idle. If the screw's turned in too much, it's going to idle too fast. Therefore, when you let go of the throttle, the chain's going to want to keep turning because the motor's idling too fast. If, on the other hand, you turn out the screw too much, it's going to idle too slow and want to stall when you let go of the throttle. Now my next solution involves something else. As you've noticed, the clutch cover is off of this chainsaw here. And what you want to look at specifically are the clutch springs on the chainsaw. There it is here, all around the clutch inside here. This one has one long spring that wraps all around the clutch components here. On some other saws, you're going to have these clips here that act as springs. And on some other saws, you're going to have 3 separate springs that are connected between the parts. The bottom line is they're all there for the same purpose, is to prevent the clutch from grabbing too quick. Now only try this solution after you've exhausted all other possibilities, like checking the idle screw on your carburetor, like I mentioned previously. What you would do is take the clutch off, replace the spring here, and then put a new spring back in, reinstall the clutch, and you should be good to go. What the new spring is going to do is prevent the clutch components here from catching on the clutch drum too quickly. When the spring's too weak, they can expand much easier than if the spring is brand new and more stiff, therefore allowing your chainsaw to idle faster before it grabs on the clutch drum and turns the chain. It's a pretty inexpensive way to repair that problem, and you're going to notice a huge difference when you put in new clutch springs. You're going to be able to set your idle on your chainsaw properly so that it's more responsive when you throttle up, and also that the chain's not turning when it's idling, which can pose a safety hazard as well. It's not too hard of a job to do. I do have videos that show how to remove the clutch on a Poulan chainsaw and Husqvarna chainsaw in my video collection on YouTube. Just follow those steps. Once you've got the clutch off, replace the spring, reinstall it, and you should be good to go. Also, while you have the clutch apart here, make sure to clean the inside of the drum of any dirt or oil that has accumulated there over the years. So this will wrap up this episode of Small Engines Questions and Answers. Thanks for all your support. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Take care now.